and welcome to Food, Views and Big Ideas. I'm Tawnya Bahr.
And I'm Lucy Allen, and this is the podcast from us here at Straight to the Source.
In this podcast, we will be introducing you to the people who are driving our food and hospitality industry forward, whether it be on the land, in the water, in the kitchen, or from the boardroom.
Each of our guests are playing a significant role in the evolution of Australia's food identity and culture, and we want you to know who they are, their views and their big ideas.
Hi, I'm Tawnya. We all know what a sliding doors moment is, and that's how our two guests today, Wayne Biles, Managing Director of UNOX Australia, and Key Account Manager Sean Cunnington, came to be where they are. These two are chefs, and even though they no longer cook professionally, they spend a heck of a lot of time in commercial kitchens. And today we're going to find out why. It's wonderful to have you guys in here, so thanks for coming in.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Tawnya.
So, Wayne, you're the Managing Director of UNOX Australia?
That's correct, yes.
You've been in the industry a long time? How long?
Somewhat.
We don't have to tell your age, but how long have you been in the industry?
I started as a pastry chef at 16 years old, so I'm approaching 44 years, or in fact, exceeding 44 years, if you like. So, I was a career patissier in Queensland, and after I did very well. I enjoyed it, really loved the creative side of it. I became a decorator, which was my passion and something that I enjoyed more so because I also worked out that it meant that I didn't have to start at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of a 7 till 3, 4 guy, which worked much better for me.
Are you trying to say you valued your sleep in?
I just wasn't great at waking up.
So that kind of work, though, is very, very detailed. Are you a detailed kind of guy? Some would say, and probably Sean would agree, that I'm particularly detailed in observation about our brand awareness, in particular in our business, but I'm also detailed in many other things. I like to make sure that things are precise, neat, but without being overly anal about everything, because I also try to cast that upon people so that they bring that to their own lives as well, because we have a very strong ethic around that in our business. If you went to our factory, you would see how detailed it is. And for me, it's very important because I see things. I walked into a business a week ago to have a meeting with a gentleman, and they weren't open at the time, and it's a very large retail store here in Melbourne that's getting involved with the launch of our new Casa product. And so went to have a meeting with him, went through the back of the building and in through the warehouse, and I stopped and I asked the gentleman who had a bright orange vest on, "Is this your department here?" And he goes, yeah, I'm Terry and I run the warehouse here. And I said, "Well, mate, congratulations, because this is incredibly neat. There's nothing on the floor. I could eat from the floor. Everything is in its place. It looks like when you go home, everything goes back where it belongs." When we walked through and into their sales meeting, the owner of that business said, "Before we start, guys, I've got to congratulate Terry, because a complete stranger just walked in here and picked the one thing that I love about this guy." And it was the detail. And they congratulated and all gave him a round of applause, which told me a lot about that particular gentleman and how he appreciates his staff, because for me, people are what our business is. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was very nice to see him acknowledge somebody who obviously works very hard and takes a lot of pride in what they do. And that was just a detail-orientated situation, if you like. So the hospitality industry, whether it's the food side or the commercial equipment side, it's all made up of dynamic people and dynamic personalities, and it's interesting how you do find your tribe. You do find like-minded people tend to migrate together. And starting out as a young chef, as you were, and then Sean,
you were a chef as well, but in England. Is that right?
Yes, that's where I started my career as a chef over in the UK.
And at what age?
So when I was 14, I started working part-time at a restaurant who they actually gave me an opportunity to do my work experience there, and I did a little bit of work in the kitchen and front of house, and that was my first taste of the industry. So yeah, when I left school, I ended up working with those guys full-time. It was for Beefeater Steakhouse, which was part of the Whitbread Group, the huge hotel group over in the UK. And then I worked with those guys for a few years, and I had an opportunity to move down to London and worked at a restaurant in London where I met people from all around the world. And I got particularly friendly with a couple of Aussies. And after about a year of working with those guys and running amok around London, they were coming back to Australia.
That doesn't sound like you, Sean.
And they put the idea in my head that I should come over here for a working holiday. So yeah, 22 years old, and I found myself on the plane to the other side of the world, and haven't looked back. Those guys were from Sydney. They lived in Cronulla, so that's where I started my Australian journey. Not a bad place to start, right next to the beach. And then I ended up working for for one of the local restaurants. But actually, it wasn't local. The one that I worked at, but the one that I went to apply for the job was again it was like a steak and seafood restaurant. I had a lot of experience, obviously from my time in the UK, and I was fortunate to get a job with those guys, and then they sponsored me to stay in Australia.
Wayne, back to you. So now, how did you go from being back of house to not where you are today, but what happened in between?
I was cooking in Brisbane, and I'm working at a number of different patisseries, and I worked at the Albion Park trotting track as a bulk patissier. Through my apprenticeship, I was a high-level producer. We were a bulk producer, so I could get things done reasonably fast, and I could do high-quality product en masse. So when I worked for a restaurant at the Albion Park trotting track, we had a buffet situation. We do 1,000 people every Saturday and 700 on Thursday nights, and then or Wednesday night, I think. But every other night or day, we were doing numbers of 500. So it was pretty fast-paced. Then I wanted to move into I felt I could sell to people, or I could talk to people about their needs. So I took a job with a company that had just started called Chef Clothing Revival. Now, those two boys that started that company were two chefs from Noosa, and I'm still in touch with both of them to today. In fact, I bumped into one of them at a bar in Milan 17 years after the fact and didn't even recognize each other. But it was a wonderful moment, the moment of realization of who we were, and that I was their first rep they'd ever employed, and they'd gone on to sell their business to an American company for a large amount of money, and still down to earth, great guys. So anyway, after that, I came to a show in Melbourne and did a show with them at the old exhibition building in Carlton, and I just fell in love with the place and thought, this is really great. Then I went skiing at Falls Creek, and I went home, and at the time I was just married, I think, and I said to my wife, we're going to go. Let's move south. Let's find a way to get to Melbourne because somebody turned the lights on. That's how it felt compared to Brisbane back then, which was 31 years ago. So it was kind of sleepier, and Expo had been on and all this. So there was a bit more happening, but not like it is now. And so we came to I managed to have what happened was Chef Clothing Revival was selling their equipment. They'd started to sell their clothing to Alsco Linen Service, American Linen, Tawnya, as you would know them.
I do know them well, yes.
And so they needed a hospitality rep, and I wanted to come to Melbourne. So between myself and the guys at Chef Revival, we convinced Alsco that they should take me in Melbourne, and we all moved. We split the cost so we could afford it, and off we went with a 3-month-old baby called Zach, who you now know.
Yes.
And off we went to Melbourne, and I started my sales career selling garments and laundry services to the hospitality industry. So I was still in the industry, which I loved, and I knew my way around it. And then I was there for about 3.5 years and doing really well in the middle of what was the recession we had to have. And they sort of didn't support me on a couple of things. And I had a little business where I was making cheesecakes for wholesale, subletting a pizza shop, which happened to be on the other side of town, which wasn't so smart. And then overnight, I decided I'd buy the pizza shop, resign, and I was going to do something completely different and for myself.
Hang on, you had a cheesecake side hustle?
Yep.
Is that what you're telling me?
Called the Cheesecake Connection, actually.
Oh.
And we made wholesale cakes. And when I took over the pizza shop, I put them in the fridge, put little 200-gram GenFat containers of these beautiful little cheesecake, all cold set. It was a really simple, basic recipe, one product, then developed into a range of 6 flavors. So it was quite a really high quality product, though beautiful, actually. And I still get asked about it when I see people, but we used to put them in the fridge at the pizza shop, and when we'd make a mistake with someone's pizza or late delivery, we'd throw a couple of cheesecakes in, and cheesecake sales went through the roof. Like
what a great idea.
I was selling hundreds of these damn things every week. People would ring up to order a pizza and they'd go, "Oh, no, I don't want a pizza. I just want some cheesecakes delivered."
Say, no, you got to buy a pizza.
Yeah,
Then we'll talk.
No, the delivery of the cheesecakes was so much simpler, Tawnya.
Would you say, Wayne, that was your turning moment in terms of being a business owner?
100%. That was where I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about people because I already had people skills, but then I had them in my face every day, and they were coming to us for a reason. We made really good product. I was very proud of what we did, but we made no money because we didn't really. Well, what we did, the mistake was we made pizza that we would want to eat, and that's, you know what it's like. When you make product at home for yourself,
extra pepperoni, extra cheese.
It's got extra everything, Sean. Extra love, care, and that. And so I learned from that there was a lot that you could do. How you looked after your people was really important because we had people that worked for us for the 10 years that we were there. And that's in that industry, you know what the turnover's like in takeaway. And we kept people, and they were just great. And when I sold the business, they actually left the next week. They just went, "Oh, no, we were only doing this for love. We weren't doing it for money."
For 10 years.
Some of them, yeah. One guy's still a very good friend of mine, and it was all about, he worked 2 hours on a Sunday night. That was it.
So that brings us back to the culture, doesn't it? It's the culture of the
100%.
environment in which you're spending your time. So, Sean, when we talk about cultures, what were you looking for?
Originally, it was just for a 12 months stint, a working holiday. That's how long my visa was for. But when I started working for these guys, I saw there was an opportunity to change a few things that would help the business. So I did those things, and they were suitably impressed, and they came to me with my sponsorship, which I wasn't sure what it meant until I had a proper look into it and went to get my visa and realised it was for 4 years. So I was pretty happy with the opportunity, and I thought, look, I'm here. Let's put my head down and make the most of the opportunity. And I ended up becoming their executive chef. They had 20 restaurants in Sydney. So I started in, back of house. So I was also, similar to Wayne a little bit, building teams and mentoring. And that's where I learned to become more of a leader. And I realized if we lead people rather than managing them, you're creating this culture and this team and this like family, if you like. And it was great to watch people coming through and learning new skills. So after a few years, my visa ran out, and they automatically renewed it for another 4 years. And then I had an opportunity to come front of house. So they had a gentleman that managed the North Sydney restaurant, and the rest of them were sort of in the suburbs. So the North Sydney side was a bit more corporate clientele. And the gentleman there, Maurice, he'd been the manager for 20 years, and he was retiring. So they said to him, Maurice, who should we put as your predecessor, and he said, I think Sean would be a good choice because he's got a great persona. He can relate to all types of different people. But I was managing the kitchen because I was the executive chef. So it's a big move for them. But they approached me and said, "Look, this is our idea. We want to bring you front of house and teach you the managerial side of the business," which was a great opportunity. So I said, "Look, let's give it a go for 3 months, and if you're happy with what I'm doing, then we'll see where it takes us." So then I ended up managing a lot of their restaurants, and then unfortunately they went into administration. But my relationships with the senior management, they kept picking me to go and help them at different businesses, and I ended up working at some very big function centres. But again, I'd transitioned to front of house then. I've been out the kitchens for quite some time. The next job that I managed to get was at the Art Gallery of New South Wales as the operations manager. So I was responsible for the food outlets, the cafe, the restaurant, and also all of the events, which was a great job, but it was super challenging with long hours. So I used to work from sort of midday till 4 o'clock. Sometimes working on the weekends. I had a young family. Jackson was still quite young then, and I wanted to try and become more like senior management, where it's more Monday to Friday, if you like. So I was pushing to get this Monday to Friday job, and then the position became available, which they gave me in the beginning, but then they reneged on it because I'd done so well. The client that they was doing the catering for, they sort of said, like, we want to keep Sean operational, so we don't want to, he's done such a good job to lift the standards since he's been here. We're just worried that they'll go back to the way they were before he came.
Sometimes that's a problem, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So I was a bit of a victim of my own
hard work. If you're too good at your job, it's hard sometimes to be moved around within an organization. Would you agree with that, Wayne?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Because when I went to sell my pizza business, one of the things I realised, and the people that were smart that looked to buy it realised that we'd made the mistake about making the business all about ourselves. And we were too involved, because it's your business and it's your heart and soul. I get it. But at the same time, you've got to divest yourself in some ways to be able to move on. And it was a real problem.
Well, it's a fact that a sign of a good business is that it can operate without you.
Yeah. Exactly. And we have that now. We in this business, we've had that for some time, and even more so now with people like Sean and Zach and the management team taking further steps where we can step out.
I think what's interesting is we're all chefs, right? And here we are. It's like you have constant sliding door moments throughout your life. And at one point, and there's different points in our career where we reflect back and go, how did I get here? And, I see how I got here because I made that decision, or I went to go work at that venue, or I sold that business and I didn't keep the pizza shop for 30 years, which you could have done.
Could have easily done and been stupid, and I wouldn't have a wife and family now.
Well, and we probably wouldn't all be sitting here enjoying our morning together.
We definitely would not be.
So what actually, can I ask you, Wayne, first, and then I'll flip to you, Sean, what actually drives you today?
Personally, I was given a great opportunity to do this, and I'm particularly proud of what we've achieved. As our friend Sam Burke, who has a great way of coining phrases for people. He called us the interrupters.
Right.
We interrupted the industry as it was. And for me, that just meant that the hard work and the dedication and passion that we put into our business, and based on our product and what we were selling, but the belief of that, and then building this group of people, that's what drives me. I'm driven by the success of the people around me, and that's the most important thing. Is if I can create a lifestyle and happiness and a way of life for our people, then their lives go on and become more ingrained with what we believe in. They have the same philosophy, and we've had people for a long time.
So Wayne, how did UNOX Australia come about?
I was very fortunate, and you talked about sliding door moments, and for me, I remember seeing an Australian cricketer. I think he was at an FSAA dinner where he talked about the time that the door is open or closed, and whether you walk through it. That really resonated with me, because there are many people that don't take the risk or the opportunity when it's in front of them to really say what they want or to push for something that they want and see if they can get it. So when I'd finished, I sold the pizza business, and I had a friend who had a cherry orchard. So for 3 months or for the cherry season, I was out there just picking fruit with nothing in my mind. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to think about what I wanted to do. And I had a bit of a break, and I didn't want to go back to cooking because I was offered a job for money that I was earning 15 years before. So it just didn't make sense to me. I saw a job advertised. There were a number of jobs that I started to apply for, one of which was for a company called RoboCoop. And as it turned out, I was offered 2 jobs on the same day, but not the RoboCoop one. So one job that I was offered, the guy goes, "I booked you a flight. You need to be in Sydney tomorrow, blah, blah, blah," selling garments for overall clothing company, which seemed okay, but I don't know. Anyway, I rang the guy that interviewed me at RoboCoop and said to him that, look, I've just been offered 2 other roles, but I'd really like to work for your company. So you've got about 15 minutes to offer me a job.
Right.
I'm really happy that I actually did that. And I don't know what made me do it, but I did really want that job because it suited me. I felt that I could be successful. So I went on to do that. And part of that was a company called FED that had the agency for UNOX. And UNOX was, back in those days, was a very simple, well-priced, but very effective machine that was easy for people to use. And I did very well selling that product under the FED brand at the time as a product in their range. And then I met the young CEO of UNOX, whose name is Nicola Michelon, who at the time was 27 years old and one of the brightest people in all of Italy, with the, double, triple degrees in economics and engineering, and a wonderful, wonderfully bright young man, and but no people skills, but everything else. And we hit it off immediately because he saw how much work I'd been doing, etc. And we decided we were going to start a business called UNOX Australia. They offered me the opportunity to be the general manager and a portion of the business to run it, which suited me perfectly because I then had a clear goal about what I was going to do, and that was going to be to manage UNOX Australia.
And can I ask you this? Were you taking your experience from being a chef, from being in sales, from running a business, and then going, you know what? This is my next chapter, my next business. It feels right. It just made sense.
100%. It was clear that the product suited me. I could do it. I knew I could do it. I just needed a support mechanism around me. And then, unfortunately, what happened was that the gentleman that owned the RoboCoop agency and FED at the time had a little bit of a change of mind over a couple of days later, and everything fell in a heap, and it was all coming to an end. And I thought, I don't know how this is going to pan out. And anyway, I just sat back, let things play, and all of a sudden they breached my contract through an offer to reduce my wages.
Right.
And yeah,
it's never going to go
which
down
I wasn't
well.
real keen with. And basically at that point, the UNOX agreement with the agent was terminated, and we immediately set up. They offered me the opportunity to be the first branch worldwide, which was a direct factory business to the reseller market. So rather than an agency, Nicola had in his mind that we should be a business that controls the price and the margin worldwide, because distributors will decide what their margin is to suit their business. What if we set it the same in every market? So we tested the water here, and it was really tough because we certainly didn't have the product we have now. and the level of intelligence, etc., of the product, not the people, Sean. But then I had no structure around me, Tawnya. There was no all that support and everything that existed before. I had to build it. So we went out, the three of us. The first employee was some people that I'd worked with before. They came along with me. I had a service guy. I had an office person. My wife was doing the finances in the back end at home at night. And I employed, the first person was Lewis Farrell in Queensland, who was my very first rep. And he was with us for the next 13 years. And we started to build from there. Then this young man presented himself.
So how did that come to be?
So I was working, like I said before, at the Arcade of New South Wales as the operations manager. I did it for a couple of years, long hours, wanted to get back in, spend a bit more time with the family. And so they reneged on this this more senior role where I could work Monday to Friday. And I thought, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to go try something different. So a good mate of mine, Richie, our kids went to school together. He said, you should do sales, mate, because you should be really good at it. So I started to look at a few sales jobs that were still related to the industry. And then I saw that UNOX Australia were looking for, an active marketing chef in Sydney. And I thought, that's interesting. I'm going to reach out to these guys and see if I can, learn a little bit more about what the opportunity is and if I can get a crack at it. So, I managed to secure an interview with Wayne.
And Lewis.
And Lewis, yeah. I didn't realise Lewis was going to be there as well at the time, but it was looking back, it was great.
Did they drill you? Did they just throw questions at you constantly? Did they just look at you?
It was one of the most bizarre interviews I've ever had. It was the longest interview I'd ever had. So, I said to the to Michelle, the office lady at the time, I said, it'd be great if I could meet Wayne first thing in the morning. I'd like to be his first appointment because, I have to go to work. And I thought, I've got a few hours up my sleeve. I can go do the interview, have some brunch and then go to work because it was going to be a late night. So anyway, I got to the venue where I was going to meet Wayne a little bit, about half an hour early, and I thought, it's 7:30, it's early, it's too early. I know he's just coming from Melbourne, so I still want to be early, but I'll wait. So I did. I went and got a coffee, had a ciggy, and I waited till about 5:02, and I rang him, and so, the phone's ringing and he answered pretty much straight away. And I said, Wayne, it's Sean, I'm here. He goes, I know, I'm behind you.
Was he behind you the whole time?
Him and Lewis, they were sitting there having their coffee and they hadn't quite worked it out until I started making the call and the phone's ringing. They're going, it's him, it's the guy with the suit over there.
I said to Lou, I bet you this is the bloke here. I said, I bet that's him there. Let's just see. I'll take a bet with you, Lou. What do you reckon?
And so did you just turn around and join their table?
Yeah. So we sort of, said good day and we took our coffees upstairs and, Wayne and Lou, they'd obviously had dinner and a few beers the night before and the banter was already going on and I was like, wow, these guys, they seem very close. They're obviously, they like each other, the way that they're, the camaraderie. And so we sat down and we started to go through the process and I was there for, must have been three and a half hours.
Were you late for work?
No. I had plenty of time to get to work.
It was the longest interview of all time. But it shows a lot because we were very comfortable and we had some really bizarre questions. And it was all a bit about learning how we would react because I'd never done this much before, Tawnya. It was kind of new and interesting. And so I just wrote a script and thought, well, I'm going to put myself in this gentleman's position and what would I do? So I thought, I know what I would do. I'm going to ask him what he'd do.
What were some of the questions, Wayne?
A lot of them were situational questions about, you've gone for a training session, the oven doesn't work. What do you do? Well, you've provided me. If I've got everything I need to make the oven work, that's what I do. And that was exactly what we needed to hear because we were trying to find people that were going to build a business with us through service. because one of the most important things in our business or any business is service.
Can I just ask a question in terms of pronunciation? I would hate to think that I do not pronounce it correctly, but I say UNOX. I've heard it pronounced a couple of different ways. So Wayne, can you tell me the correct pronunciation for your business?
UNOX.
UNOX.
Yeah.
UNOX Australia.
UNOX Australia.
I am going to embed that in my brain. And my apologies all these years when I've said UNOX.
Don't worry.
I think it
Can you
must be
imagine
just
what
in
they're
this.
saying all over the place? It's
Yeah.
130 countries.
And you've never corrected me.
No, look, you know.
We'll just get used to it. I think it's an Australian thing. Everyone refers to it as UNOX.
Can we please talk about UNOX Australia and what UNOX offers, please?
UNOX makes one product. We do one thing. We make things hot. That's it. We specialize in the transfer of heat. And we happen to be an innovation company that happens to make ovens. That's the way I see it. We have some of the brightest people in Italy and other countries working for us. But in the innovation department, we have now something like between something like up to 90 people working on innovation alone. And it's an enormous number of people in departments. I saw last night the appointment of a gentleman that's been with us that I met on my first trip to Italy, and he's now head of sustainability and environmental sustainability, and making sure that everything that we do from now on, and has been going on for the past probably 8 or 10 years anyway, but is always with the social conscious, and that we will always make products that are going to be sustainable, and everything that we do, right down to how we pack the oven and the removal of anything that has an impact on the environment, they're working constantly towards that kind of innovation. So when I look at the product that we make and how it's made, so everything is done in an on-time style, Toyota style manufacturing. So we don't actually hold any stock. It's built to order like a oven takeaway shop. So they we have an order process where the company has 10 days to produce my container each time I send a container order, which is basically now automatically ordered from our warehouse anyway. So we don't really have to think about too much about our needs for the product, because it automatically is calculated by algorithms to deliver the stock that we need to suit the market demands based on consumption.
Does that limit the lead time?
Oh, it shortens everything. And we have a 28-day sailing period. So when COVID started to ease and we were in a situation where we could manufacture properly again or fully, a lot of companies had shortage of raw materials and components, etc., and really struggled to be able to manufacture to suit the growth in the market. And because we as innovators own 96% of our manufacturing, we were able to very quickly produce to suit the demands and increase our output rapidly. And in a 3-month period, they went from being able to produce around 550 combi ovens to 850 combi ovens a week, which is a phenomenal feat, because, you know, you've got to actually have the facility, get the equipment in there to do it. But these guys, that just the level of speed and decisiveness is absolutely phenomenal. And then where you look at where we're going and the innovation, because of the engineering background of the owner of the business, Enrico Francelin, who is just the most wonderful man, Sean, isn't he?
He's incredible.
He's just the someone who will listen to everybody's opinion, takes dissent on board and looks at dissent as a positive and uses it to improve the business. And so when you look at our business and the way that it operates and the people that are given like we have nuclear physicists, we have some incredible brains, and the innovation, yet you can come up with an idea in a meeting, because we've all sat there, Sean, haven't we, where they'll say, anybody, what do you think about this? And we'll go, well, how about, and they'll go, good idea.
And then they go, maybe not such a good idea. And then 6 months later, they go, oh, we've got this new idea.
And you go, that was mine.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as you see the progression of our product back in the day from a analog style machine to where we are now, we are at the peak of technology and the learning. We have machines that are now learning common habits of the chef or the user of the oven, and it starts to work within the needs of that business and automatically learning. So voice activation, we can dial into an oven now remotely and appear on the screen.
Isn't that just extraordinary?
Unbelievable, because imagine, and there's two reasons for that. One of the reasons is to offer a level of support to a QSR or whoever the user is by being able to book a training session on the screen of the oven, where the trainer will take over the control of the oven and start, like your computer, when you have a problem, some geek comes along and goes, you sit back and watch me fix it. Mm-hmm. Well, in this case, we actually can walk the end user through every step and have them follow us if they want and join in the process. But the other part to that is that we don't have to go to that client. We don't have to get in a car and drive and use resources. We don't have to add greenhouse gases to this process of coaching and training. It's a completely different way of considering our entire environment and the impact that we have, because as humans, I always look at human nature and think, humans themselves, and think, here we are, the top of the food chain. But for the first 10 years, we're pretty useless.
I'll tell my kids that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, like we can't even. Like I watched the birth of a wildebeest, and the thing got up off the ground and ran. And I thought, that's a bloody wildebeest, and there's billions of those things running around, wandering around, waiting to be eaten by something. And here we are, we're born, and we lay on the ground and go and cry until somebody does something for us. And
excuse me, Zach, if you're listening, your dad is not.
Get off the floor. Stop crying.
Yeah. That's for other reasons, Sean. He's back in the fetal position, but that's because I'm his boss.
Yeah.
So, Sean, can I ask you a question? What advice would you give your younger self growing up in England? What advice would you give yourself?
I've thought about this a few times. Would I change? What I did when I was younger, and the answer is absolutely not. I'd do exactly the same as what I did, and I'd follow the path that I did, because it's brought me to where I am today. If I could give my younger self a bit of advice, it would be to be more accepting of other people's ideas. Just because your way works and is successful doesn't mean that it's the way that we have to do it. Mm-hmm. I've worked that out the last few years, because I did used to be a little bit full on and a bit pushy on, no, we have to do it this way because we got good results from this.
We coached him through that.
Yeah, but I'm completely different. I've got a different awareness now, and for my whole career with UNOX, I've been able to grow and transition into, a better, not better person, but better employee, colleague, whatever it takes to have the most success, for our business.
And Wayne, how about you? What advice would you give your younger Wayne?
Calm down, but keep your levels of energy and keep the passion. Believe in everything that you think you can do, because yes, you can. You can do it. It's just that sometimes I can only imagine how many people are out there that have got so much ability but have never been given an opportunity or created an opportunity, perhaps. Fear of failure is one of the worst human emotions, because it can destroy you. Mm-hmm. And it can stop you from achieving your full capabilities and what you really could be capable of, possible. We don't advertise for salespeople in particular, but we advertise for other roles, of course. But for salespeople, we don't advertise, because what we tend to do is find a chef or someone with that level of skill, or maybe even a cook. It doesn't really matter if they've got the basics, or we can teach them as much as we can, but they have to have passion. And we interview on passion. Mm-hmm. And if someone sits here and tells me they're passionate about oven when I'm talking to them about a job, well, they're probably going to be the first person I don't speak to again, because, you can't bullshit me on that. The fact of the matter is that everybody has to have a passion. It could be anything, but I want to know what it is and what drives you outside. Because if you've got that, then that will see you through so much. So much.
And it's infectious.
Thank you. And I feel the same way with what we're doing with you guys and the support of your innovation and the ideas like concept to consumer and how that's just, starting to ramp up now. Really, I think last year was a dry run.
Yeah.
If you like.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're very excited for it. I mean, working with the top food scientists in the country and bringing in that nutrition side, the taste sensory side, the science, innovation, it's the full
gamut. It's bringing it. Yeah, it's basically a very, very good idea. And the way that if you look at Averio and our wonderful hot fridge, which has now achieved global HACCP certification, the only hot holding machine worldwide, and the creation of a hot vacuum pump. I am still, every day I see someone in our academy here that looks at that and just goes, shakes their head. You can't see me because this is not filmed, but I'm shaking my head and looking surprised.
It's a wild concept because it does step outside everything that you're taught with regard to food safety.
It's true innovation. You see other companies, they're making products similar to what they've had before, but just a better version, and it doesn't really offer the industry anything new. When you look at UNOX and our guys and the technology that they're bringing to our industry in terms of the Averio, the hot fridge, being able to use the hot food vacuum with hot food, these things that we've never been able to do before. And it's just going to help people in their businesses so much.
Agreed. The work that you've done alone with aged care community, Sean, is incredibly commendable.
But, it's not just aged care, Wayne. Our industry at the moment, we've always had issues with staff, but now it's just out of control,
It's
so
chronic.
To be able to offer them a solution that helps them be more flexible and when they're cooking food, and so they can control their manpower and still produce great results. It's very pleasing, mate.
And so on that note, we might wrap it up. But next, you guys have a few trade shows coming up.
We have Food and Hospitality Queensland again in October this year. We have Fine Food in
September.
Sydney in September. We have the Metcast show in the middle of the year. There's nearly one a month, Tawnya.
And for the listeners out there that will be going to Fine Food in September in Sydney, we will be back at the Source Kitchen.
Yes.
Fabulous.
And we will have it kitted out with a combi, and we'll have a Averio, and we're going to have a tremendous program over the 4 days, 3 or 4 sessions each day, pushing the boundaries, bringing in really interesting speakers, and also doing some demonstrations. And what else are we going to do,
Your
Sean?
program was super impressive last time. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do again this time. So, yeah, if you're listening, make sure you get to the Source Kitchen at Fine Food in Sydney, because it's not to be missed.
In our show notes, we will have the link to your guys' website, all your social channels, your email addresses. So if any chefs or restaurateurs are listening and you want to get in touch with you, Sean.
Yep. Reach out.
We'll be sharing across our socials as well, and everyone, as per usual, everyone will be well aware where we're going and when.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Wayne. Thank you, Sean. Have a great day and look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you, Tawnya.
Thanks, Tawnya. It's been a great experience. Thank you very much.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We really hope you enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed the conversation. You'll find links to anything mentioned in today's chat in the show notes. We have some more extraordinary guests lined up, and we would love you to join us again. So please make sure you're following us on your favourite podcast app so you don't miss future episodes. We'd also love to hear any of your feedback, good or bad, or perhaps you've got a guest you'd love to hear from. You can let us know. And the best way to stay up to date with what we're doing, who we're talking to, and where you'll find us around the country is to become part of the Straight to the Source community at straighttothesource.com.au/community. Until next time.